Bam. All right, we're back with another one. Let me introduce our guest. Her name is Jessica. She is she's an intuitive mentor, energy practitioner, international best-selling author, host of the Breakthrough Show, a panel-style talk show going into its fourth season, and the creator of Up and Coming Project Joy podcast, premiering Monday, January 6th. She's passionate about helping women empower themselves to live their lives with less stress and more joy. She is a multi-passionate entrepreneur, bringing her coaching skills, healing modalities, authentic intuition, holistic lifestyle choices, and the love of the moon to illuminate her spirit, community, collective, and private clients. Outside of her business, Jessica is a wife and homeschooling mom of 6 beautiful children, enjoying many hobbies while living a plant-based life. Let's bring in Jessica and have a little talk. Oh yeah, hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I can hear you loud and clear.
Good. Good. I'm glad I swiped my daughter's headphones so that it'd be nice and loud,
There you go.
including my kids in the background.
Well, it's amazing reading your I think like reading your bio is very beautiful. It's amazing. What I mean is, but the one thing that I find the most inspiring out of it all is you're a mother of 6 children, homeschooling, while you're also an entrepreneur and taking care of your life. That in itself is a journey of its own. Most people can't even take care of themselves, and you have another 6 lives to take care of as well.
I have my moments. I have my moments. Like, I mean, I never anticipated having a big family at all. It wasn't something like I was little and thought, oh, I'm going to have a big family. It's just the way my life went, and so I think I just kind of learned and grown every time another one came along, and you just kind of roll with it, I think.
I love it. I love it. So I read the bio, but tell me about you. Tell me about your story.
Sure. So I haven't always been in this space of wanting to mentor other people, or like I said, even in my home life, like I didn't anticipate being in a life like this. I was a student of the month in middle school, and I have that article from when I was student of the month still, and I said I wanted to be a singer or a lawyer. Even then, I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do. But I think I always really wanted to serve other people. When I have this memory of when I was around 9 years old, and I lived with my grandparents a lot of my upbringing, and I used to put on these seminars in our living room and have my grandmother come. Bless her that she entertained me in doing all this. But I had one seminar in particular that was how to love yourself. And I didn't know, I think back to that time now and think I didn't know what that meant then. But I think somewhere in me, I just wanted to make the world a better place somehow and help people. And so it's taken me many years to try to figure out, I guess, what that looks like for me. I had done work with a lot of different companies, and I had worked for other people, and I never really still found that place where I felt at home and had discovered myself. And so 10 years ago, actually coming up next month, I lost my brother to cancer. And he was 24 years old when he died. And I had such a big realization when he died that, like, who am I? And what is this life that I'm living? And it really just completely rocked me. I didn't know what I was doing with my life at the time. I really had gotten very good at wearing a mask and being what everybody else wanted me to be. and falling apart inside, but wearing the mask of Mother of the Year and the best wife ever, and I just wasn't, and I wasn't taking care of myself at all. And it's really interesting because I told this story in the book that I wrote, or the book that I contributed to called Shine, about that moment. And when someone dies and you have all this stuff that just sort of floods back to you, memories, and for me, when I experienced that, what came flooding to me was that, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're not taking care of yourself. You're putting on these masks, and really it was, I felt like it was my brother just saying, get yourself together. Stop pretending you're someone you're not. And it has been a process over the last 10 years of discovering myself and then realizing the importance of sharing that journey of discovery with other people so that they can learn and grow in their own lives as well.
So along the path that you took, would you consider that to be your awakening moment, a moment that shifted and changed your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, up until my brother had passed away, I had lived a fairly, I guess what's considered a normal kind of life in suburbia. I had my kids in public school, and we ate a standard American diet. We didn't really, we were going to church, and everything was very like by the book, and doing what I thought I was supposed to do. And really, the moment that he died, started this awakening. I say an awakening process for me, because like I said, I'm still figuring it out. Every moment I'm still sort of figuring it out, but it had me looking at things in a different way. I began looking at a holistic way of taking care of myself in a physical way. I started homeschooling my children. We became plant-based. There was a lot of shifts and changes over the last 10 years for me and my whole family. And it was that moment that started this process of awakening for me, because I just, like I said, I was doing everything that I thought everybody else wanted me to do,
When you started going through that shift, because you were still in a family and there's other people to think about, were there any challenges or struggles or hardships that you faced by going through that?
I think for a little while, it was really slow process at first. So I think, and I'm sure they'll correct me later when my husband and my my kids listen to this talk, because it could have been a completely different experience than how I did. But I don't feel like it was a huge deal. I feel like it set a comfortable environment for my kids to start exploring about themselves and about what they believe in, and how they want to live their lives, and learning and opening themselves to new experiences. And interestingly enough, my husband and I have kind of grown together through all of this. I think there's been plenty of moments when he's like, what are you getting into? Like, I'm not really sure what the hell you're doing today, but then, he warms up after a little while, and it was like, oh, she kind of has a point, and so I couldn't be more grateful that I've got, a husband and 6 kids who have been so supportive on my own awakening journey. But it's been a very reciprocal situation where, through me discovering and awakening and growing, it has created a safe space for them as well. So it's kind of it's a nice symbiotic sort of relationship that we have going on around here, where it's just a safe space, I feel like, to just come into what you feel you need to discover, in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. As you were going through these shifts and these changes, um, were there any doubts in your own mind as you were leaving the old familiar and moving into the new unfamiliar?
Oh yeah, yeah. Throughout this process, so the week that my brother passed away, we had actually been in Connecticut for my grandfather's funeral, and my brother died 2 hours after my grandpa's funeral. So this was like, it was the 2 weeks where in my life where so much had changed, because my grandfather was also my godfather. He helped to raise me. He was more than just my grandpa to me. And since then, my grandmother has also passed away, and my brother's fiance has also passed away. So all of this loss going on, and I tend to be a very nostalgic person. That's one thing that I've learned about myself through this process is really that I tend to grasp onto things and people and circumstances from the past, because it makes me feel grounded, it makes me feel safe. And so even though I was discovering like a lot, especially about my spiritual beliefs, I had grown up Catholic and very involved in the church, and I had made all my sacraments, and all of that kept coming back to me through this process of trying to figure out what I actually believed at my core in a spiritual sense. And I kept thinking to myself, you're doing something wrong. You're like, you're going straight to hell, Jessica. I just had, because that's what I grew up believing, is that we weren't supposed to ask questions about things, and we weren't supposed to have a lot of the experiences that I had begun having. And so I question, even now, it takes a lot for me to stop questioning myself, to say, just, it's okay that you explore this stuff. It's okay that you're figuring out, what it is that you want and you believe in, and what you know to be true at your core. And so that's something that I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing when we question ourselves, because, we can say it's bad, we don't trust our intuition, but I think it's good because it can allow us to go deeper. And it can allow us to go further and explore further and say, what is it? Like, yeah, we say that we believe this, but why? And when? And how? And all of that, and go further and really become rooted in what we do believe to be true.
So when you're asking all of those questions, because, we really, the quality of our life really depends on the quality of the questions that we do ask. How did you know that, let me ask, did you know that you were asking the right questions? And when you did have an answer, did you feel like that was the answer, or did you feel like you needed to go even deeper? Because a lot of times when we ask a question, it's just like, why am I this? Statement, I'm good. So how was your process with questions? What kind did you ask? How did you deal with them? What was the answer? What was your response? I'd love to hear so much about that.
So I think I was not really good at asking questions in the beginning. And even now it can be like, there's moments when I think we as humans, like, we want quick and easy answers. We've gotten to this space where, like, we want that instant gratification. Like, we want to know that we're right. We want to know that everything's the way it is in the moment. And so that's when it becomes really easy to ask yes and no questions, and just to say to yourself, like, am I on the right path? Yes. All right. Awesome. Yeah, I'll just keep going. Or no, I'm not. Okay, cool. I'll change direction. And it's not always that simple. And what happens is when we ask those yes or no questions, we may not be going the right direction when we get those answers. So for me, things started to change when I began to ask questions that are very open-ended, like, what do I need to know right now? Very, very, not really vague, but just asking in specific ways, like, what do I need to know about my health today? right now. And asking those same questions about the past too, like saying, you know, what do not do I need this person or this memory or this circumstance from my life from 20 years ago? What's the value of having this in my life right now? And I think when we open ourselves up to just hearing what God or spirit or the universe has to offer us without putting our ego into it, or without just saying, oh, well, I'm just here for the quick fix. I'm here for the yes or no, and then to move on. When you're opening yourself up to whatever comes through, I think if we're not doing that, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And it's a process. Like I said, I think it's very natural for us to just want that yes or no and to move on. But I think that if we're committed to our personal development or our spiritual development, we've got to be open to just asking the hard questions, and then not just hearing the answer and saying, okay, cool, awesome, but to say, okay, now what am I going to do with this? Am I going to allow it to change me, to grow me, to move me forward? Or am I going to hear the answers and do nothing about it? I can't tell you how many times both myself and clients that I've worked with have asked a question, give an answer, and then we don't do anything, and then we wonder why nothing's changing. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's, I mean, gosh, I've frustrated my own self with that. That many times.
So here's a question in that, then, you know, how do you keep yourself accountable?
Oh, that's a good one. I think, so here's the truth. So this might hurt a feeling, because it hurt my feelings in the beginning, so I'm sorry if it hurts anybody's feelings. But look, we have to kick our own ass. Like, if you're not ready, like, you could ask a question, and start exploring things in your life. And if you're not ready to do anything about it, if you're not ready to hear the answer you get, you're not going to do anything about it. So you have to really, like, for me, I had to start, before I even asked the question, to backtrack a little bit, to say, am I ready to hear something that might be an answer that I don't want to hear right now? Because if I'm not, what's the point of asking the question? What's the point of, because if you're not going to do anything with it, then, I mean, to me, that's kind of just a waste of time and a waste of asking a question. If you're not going to do anything with it, and by doing something with it, I don't mean you necessarily have to take, like, you know, extreme action and quit your job and whatever it is that you're asking, but just by taking action, I mean, even just thinking about it, giving yourself the opportunity to go a little further with it. But I think that it's really important, though, that we just give ourselves, you know, the space that we need. Did I answer your question, or am I skirting around it? You tell me.
Keep going. It's all right. The main idea is, how do you keep yourself accountable for all this stuff? And right. I think you're getting there. Continue.
I'm getting there. So I think surrounding yourself with really good people that are going to hold you accountable is good too. If you have a circle of people that are constantly in their own rut and they're not holding themselves accountable, and they're not going to hold you accountable either. You want to surround yourself with people that are in that same mindset as you, of, like, I want to succeed, I want to grow, I want to help the world, or whatever it is that your focus is. So I've surrounded myself with good people. I think I've had to kick my own rear end several times, of saying, like, you know, if you didn't really want this, why did you ask the question? and you know, just doing that with myself. I've had to realize my humanity, put things in my calendar, and remind myself of things. I think sometimes we want to do this whole spiritual thing where we're like, oh, I'm in this great place now to hold myself accountable. Well, you're also human and you have 20,000 other things you're doing. Put it in your calendar and remind yourself. We have all this great technology, like make it pop up on your phone, to remind yourself what it is that you need to know or remember. And so I think those are like the main things that I do, is just asking myself, is it really important? And surrounding myself with good people, and then remembering that I'm human and reminding myself, because I forget things a lot.
Well, I think that's a very, I think the people make a very big difference in our lives, because if we want to achieve something, it's great to be around other people that are modeling it and trying to achieve it as well, while finding somebody that we can learn from who's doing it. So, for example, I stopped drinking because I felt that it wasn't bringing any worth into my life. In my 20s, I was an alcoholic. I was drinking all the time. And then in my 30s, I'm like, I'd have a beer here and there. I'm like, but what does this beer lead me to? Well, it leads me to bars. And what does the bar do for me? It gets me to spend money and do things that I normally don't want to do, to hang out with people that I don't feel like is really energetic until I actually get drunk. And that I feel like this bottle it's like I'm looking for the answer at the end of this, at the bottom of this bottle. And every time I finish one, I have to try and find the answer in the next one and the next one. That I'm like, so what's really going on here? I'm like, right. I'm surrounding myself with things and putting things into my system that are not really helping me to achieve, because I feel disconnected right now. I feel like I'm not, I have no worth, I have no value. So I'm like, well, what do I want to do? Well, a little down the street, there's a rock climbing gym. I'm like, yeah, why not? And it was open, it was free, so I decided to climb. And I would go every day, and then every day I would climb. And then eventually, after a month, I had a whole bunch of climbing friends. They were teaching me. I was excelling. We were having great conversations, and things changed. So changing your current situation of the individuals around you, and there's nothing wrong with them, because we all want our own things in life, and situating in yourself that people that are achieving it, have a desire for it, makes sense. And knowing that it's okay to have a group of friends for different things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's been a huge lesson for me. Like I said, like I'm such a nostalgic person, and I like I've hung on to, like, my 20th class reunion was this year, and I've hung on to. I know I don't look like I graduated 20 years ago, do I?
You look like you're about to go right now.
Thank you. We made my whole day right there. No, but like I had friends and stuff from back then that even now I've taken the time to look at those relationships, and I realize like how many of them I've had on a pedestal, and in my mind, we're still, in the library freshman year doing homework together, and so I had a couple weeks ago. I wanted to have some conversations with people on Zoom, and because I was just looking at my friends list on Facebook, going, okay, I have like 1,000 something odd friends, and I never talk to them, friends, and why? Why do I have all these, and I don't talk to anybody? And I really was in a space where I was craving this connection and just wanting to have conversations with people, and I had reached out to a couple people that I had gone to school with, because I thought, wouldn't that be fun to jump on Zoom and connect after 20 years and just, talk and say hi, and here I am all excited. And like one of them was literally like, I don't have time for a 10-minute chat with you, like I really don't. And I'm like, oh shit, I put so much stock into, because here I am thinking that things are, I haven't missed a beat in 20 years, that things that just are the same as what they were, and they're not. And it's in the same thing with my marriage too. Like I know at the beginning of my marriage, like I really, I feel like I depended on my husband for a lot of things and to be everything. everything that I need, at least to be my friend, to be my lover, to be my confidant, to, as I'm going through all of this process of, discovering what spirituality means to me and getting into a lot of metaphysical things and learning about crystals and all. And I would go to him after like a long day at work, and he would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what is going on here? And so I had to learn, like, that's not necessarily what our marriage is supposed to be about. Like, I need to have people over here to talk about those things with. And I think that's so important to understand, just the role that people play in your life, and the role that circumstances play in your life and different things. And, not everything's meant to last forever and ever and ever, even though some of us might want in the back of our minds for it to. If we're real, we like to hang on to things like that because it feels good, because it's comfortable, because it's cozy, it's like a warm blanket. And I guess the danger in that is when we start to hang on to things because it's comfortable, but they weren't actually good for us. We're hanging on to it because we're afraid to move forward, and that's where I guess some of the danger comes in. But yeah, I wanted to chime in about that because the whole relationship thing, like, that's been such a huge part of my awakening journey, is, realizing the reason for some relationships and the different roles that people play. It's kind of neat to, like, you're kind of casting, I think of it as like you're kind of casting your life for different roles that people play. You watch a movie, and the different scenes that not every person in the whole cast is in every scene of the movie. Mm-hmm. They play different roles, and so now I kind of think of it in that way, like, okay, I've got this one part of my life, who do I want to play in that part of my life with me? And so I think it can be fun if we let it, and not as scary as some of us might think it is.
Well, here's a question that I have, because you are, you do your mentor, you do your practitioner, you're an author, you're a wife, you're an entrepreneur, you're a mother of 6. Do you show up the same for every single one?
No. I like to think that I do, like, and I think that the key to what I'm saying here is that I don't even show up the same for all of them at different times. And it was like, so for example, my youngest daughter is 3 years old and my oldest son is 18. Those are very different stages of life. And so one of them needs me a lot more than the other one does, and needs me to be more present. One of them needs to talk to me in a very different kind of way. And so I find that it's the same with my clients. Sometimes the majority of women, when they come to me, are at the very beginning of this sort of awakening or realization of going, who am I, and what have I been doing with my life so far? Funny enough, in the same place that I found myself in 10 years ago, of just going, something's got to give here, something has to change in my life, and not really knowing where it is. And so even those relationships have had to change over time. They need me a lot more in the beginning. It's like a newborn baby. They need me to be there and to listen and all of that. And then as they become comfortable and start discovering who they are and sort of going off on their own a little bit, they need you less. And so, so I guess for me, like, I've had to really learn, not just, so that's from their perspective of things. From my perspective of things, I've had to really learn priorities and time management and figuring out, if I take on this book right now, if I take on this book project right now, what is that going to take away from, if anything? And learning how to say no, because it is a lot. and I don't tend to give myself as much credit as I probably should for as much as I do juggle. I don't think any of us really do. Sometimes we just think we're going through things, and then we sit back and go, oh, God, I do like 50 different things. You know? So I think I show up differently for a lot of different things, but ultimately I've had the one thing now is that you get Jessica, like no matter whether you're my kid or my husband or my client or my friend or my family member, whereas, you know, 15 years ago, you would get very different Jessicas depending on where you fell in that. And that makes me really sad that it was like that for me for a while, because I was so afraid to be myself and would just I'm a very good chameleon. I can be whoever I know somebody wants me to be. I can be that, and that's not necessarily something to be proud of, because then they not really don't know who you are. They're not knowing you. They're getting to know the you that they want you to be, and so that's I think something that I'm most proud of in my life right now is that. And sometimes it may be appropriate and it may not, but you know, I am who I am, you know, and so the more comfortable I get with me just being myself, like I'm proud that no matter who you are in my life right now, you're all getting the same person. So don't think you're getting the raw end of the deal. Or anything, you know. And so that's one thing that doesn't change, is I am who I am with everybody now. And you know, just that level of time or commitment or investment just depends on where we're at and, you know, what it calls for in the moment.
Interesting. Yeah, the reason I asked that question is because, you know, you're constantly wearing so many different hats, you know, and there are so many different individuals in your life with different personalities, and, you know, no two child are the same. Like, I grew up in a house with two older brothers. We're very different. We have similarities, but we're also very different. And I believe that homeschooling and doing all these things, like, okay, so homeschooling, you invoke the teacher. Business, you invoke the businesswoman. Children, you invoke the mother, but the mother comes and shows in different ways. Right. You know, and the reason I ask this question is because I believe that a lot of us believe that we must be one way, because that's the idea of it, like let's peel back the layers of the onion to discover ourselves. But if you do that, you're taking away from the layers that make up yourself. I think that you and how you approach your life and your children and your business, it's like, well, I need to put on this hat to do this. I need to put on that hat to do that. Meaning, like, you're being authentic to the different layers that make up the whole of you. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times in spirituality, it's like, I must be my authentic self. You're authentically being yourself all the time. It's just.
Can I swear?
You can do whatever I
swear,
you need.
Aaron? Fuck that. Oh my gosh. In a spiritual community, like, look, we're so try to smooth things over, and we got to be a certain way, and
the idea is, it's like, so now that you've had a chance to be spiritual, the rivers will be calm and the trees will not flow. It's like the second that you're like, one sec, this doesn't make sense, it's just like the tsunamis come and the hurricanes come, and you're just like, oh my God, but you're learning how to ride the storm, so each time another one comes, you have a better idea of how to deal with it, because that is life, and that's the beauty of life in itself. So that's why I was really curious to know about you, because listen, you're juggling a lot as a human being, taking care of so many individuals. So my next question is, with all these things that you do for everybody else, what do you do for yourself?
Oh gosh, well, I think part of what I've had to discover about myself is that I really get so much energy and so much life from being of service to other people. Me doing for other people is a lot of times what I do for myself. Because, like, for example, this past year has been really challenging for me in a physical sense with my health. I've had a lot of moments where I couldn't get out of bed. We're not sure what's going on. So when I wake up in the morning, I don't know what I'm going to get when I open my eyes, how I'm going to feel, how my day is going to go. And that's really challenging with, like you're saying, like 6 little people that need you and all of this other stuff that I have going on. And so I think that I've had to just learn to roll with it in the moment, to whatever each day brings is what I need to do in that moment. I think we tend to put so much emphasis on what has happened in the past or where we want to go in the future. So we're like I mentioned, I'm a nostalgic person, so I tend to live back here a little bit. I tend to lean more to the past and what has happened back then. And I know many people that are constantly pushing forward. They're constantly looking ahead and what's next, what's next, what's next. And we're forgetting that right now in this present moment, like, this is what's important. Right this second, right now, nothing else, because all of these choices that we make in the moment, that is what's going to honor the past and to define the future. So like right now, this moment is what's really, really important in our lives. And I think that my focus has been, especially this time of year, like my focus has just been there, going into the new year. Do you choose a word of the year? Aaron, do you choose a word of the year?
No, but I'll tell you the word of my year at the end of the year.
Well, I mean, that's one way to do it. Oh, hold on, I'm going to drop my headphones. That's one way to do it, that you just, however your year went, you choose a word on how that year went. But I choose, at the beginning of every year, I choose a word that I want to be my focus for the year. I remember the first year that I chose a word, it was determined. And boy, did I have so many opportunities that year to learn how to be determined. And then I chose joy. And I had so many opportunities that year to try to find the joy in situations where you shouldn't be able to find the joy. And then last year was simplicity. And I realized that I don't keep anything simple at all, ever. And so I choose these words to sort of give myself a focus. And I know from all these other years that it's going to kick my rear end, like it's going to challenge me. I see it as an opportunity to make better choices in the moment. I always remember this is the word that I chose and I'm being challenged and I can choose. And so my word for going into next year for 2020 is intentional. And it's very fitting for me because I tend to think about a lot of things. I tend to be very much in my head and think about things a lot. But to do it in a way where, like, I'm in charge. I'm making the choices for my life, and to be intentional about everything that I do. As silly as it may sound, even if I sit down and play a game with my son, I'm going to be intentional about that, and I'm going to shut off my phone, and I'm going to be intentional about having fun, and saying, screw everything else right now. Like, I just want to sit down and beat his behind at Mario Kart because that's how it happens. Don't look at me like that over there. And so, like, just that's such a big part of everything for me right now is just being present right now and intentional about what I'm doing and the choices that I'm making. And if something doesn't fit in my life, just saying this doesn't fit in my life right now and being okay with that and not feeling bad about it,
Yeah, I feel that's a very great practice to have. I incorporated, so every night every day when I wake up, I do my meditations and then I do my prayers. And, you know, I do my little mantras and little things that I say, like, may I forgive, be forgiven, forgive myself, and I prosper everybody and everything and everybody prospers me, because I believe we're so interconnected. And that reminds me, but I also set my intentions. And the reason I set my intentions for the day is because when I wake up, no phones, no anything, no distractions, me, focusing on me, myself, and then I set my intention. Then throughout the day, when things happen, I'm like, nope, that's not my intention. Nope, that's not my, like, it's like, what's my focus for the day? Nope, nope, nope. And then I know what's a distraction and what's my focus. And I go forward. And then at the end of the day, instead of setting my intention, I ask questions. So when I wake up in the morning, because I'm in such a calm state, I have the answers. And through that answer, I set my intention. Hence, the circle comes every single day. And that's my routine and ritual that I discovered works for me. And this doesn't have to be for everybody. To each their own. You have your word, and that's amazing, because you're setting your intention, your focus, your idea for the whole year, where you're like, this is what I want. This doesn't work. That's okay, but that's not where I'm going. That's not where I'm going. I'm going to keep on staying focused on that. And I think that is such a powerful tool for us. Whoever and however people want to do it, do it. But that's a way, as going back to what we were talking about before, is how do you keep yourself accountable? Well, here are two different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and it's more like, I love that idea of doing, you know, setting intentions each day. I do that a lot myself, of saying, like, what do I need to accomplish today, or what is my focus need to be on? And then it's easy to say yes and no to everything else that comes along. And I think with with choosing the word of the year, it's you know, what do I want to welcome into my life, whether it's a behavior or an intention. And it doesn't mean, like, you know, like when I chose determined, I've carried that with me the last several years of like, I'm just determined to, that's the name of the umbrella name of my business, is just determined, because everybody was always asking me, like, how are you homeschooling 6 kids, and how are you even, like, alive? Like, you know, how are you doing all this stuff? I'm just determined to do it. You know, like I said, you're not going to do anything unless you really want to do it. So I really want to do it. I'm just determined to do it. And so I've carried that determined word with me. And then when I chose joy, now I've had all these moments, even outside of that year, to recognize and choose joy. And so it's carrying it with me, and like, it's a focus for a year, and then I carry it with me, continues. So now I'm determined and joyful, and, you know, attempting to still be simple, keep things simple. And now I'm going to be intentional about what I do, and add that to the mix. We have to let things marinate a little bit before we add all this other stuff to our plate, you know?
Marination is delicious. Well, the main idea, like what you're saying, is what you do when you set something like that for a year is you're rewiring your brain, and you're telling your brain what's important and what lens you want to look at. After that, you do a next one, and the brain's already rewired with that, and then you're rewiring with something else. So eventually you're making your brain even more plastic and easier to adapt to the things that you want and take away from the previous stuff. So I think that's great, because they say the best way to rewire your brain is to do something, whatever it is, for 9 minutes a day will rewire your brain. Every day, 9 minutes. So if you're saying that determination, joy, if you're saying simplicity, and like you're constantly looking through that lens, like for example, because I'm a runner, I'll use an analogy. Running 50 meters is hard the first time you do it. But then after a year goes by, you're able to run it with no problem. So now we can add additional things to your training and add additional ideas and additional stuff. And then eventually 3 years later, people are like, how are you doing this? And you're just like, one step at a time.
Yes. It's funny, because when I think about, so being a mom of 6, the normal reaction I get is, I don't know how you do it. I could never do that. Like, I've had, and those are the nice comments. And so I've had tons of comments come in, but this is very similar. And so what I get with that of being a mom of six, the initial reaction when someone first meets me, I mean, I've gotten to the point now where I'm just funny about it. And I'm like, are you sitting down? Because I'm about to blow your mind. But it's the same thing with social media. We see before and after. We don't see all of the stuff that goes on in between it. So I didn't just wake up and have 6 children sitting in my lap. That's not how that happened. Anybody who didn't know that's not how it worked, I'm sorry to be to share.
I'd be pretty freaked out if I'm like, they're like, Dad, I'm like, what did I do last night? Like, how long have I been sleeping for?
Yeah, I should have stopped drinking long before now. but it's like, you know, I've had time. I've had 19 years to adjust to having 6 children. Mm-hmm. And they're not all, it wasn't like, you know, I'm the septuplet mom. It didn't all happen the same day. I had time to adjust to it. And they're all different ages now at different points in their lives. And so it's not like I have 6 children that are in their terrible 2s, or I have, 6 children who I would just die if they were all teenagers at the same time. That's how it would happen. But they're at different stages and they help each other, and there's this beautiful thing that's happened. And it's the same thing with social media. We see someone was fat and now they're skinny, and someone was poor and now they're rich, and we don't see all of this time. It takes a lot of time to grow and develop and create the kind of lives that people want to create. And it's the same thing with our own journeys that we're on. Our own awakening process is just little bits at a time. You don't have to get everything at once and then, make it all happen overnight. That's just not how that works. And so you learn something new. And like when my brother died 10 years ago, I didn't just have this awakening moment and learn everything in that one moment. That's not how that happened. That moment was just my realization. It was just your life needs to change. I didn't know how I was going to do it, or what I was going to do, or what I needed to do, or I didn't even know what the word holistic was then. Like a lot of this stuff that I'm into now, I had no idea, what any of this stuff was. And so you just, like, you have the realization and you add little bits and you figure out if you need that or not in your life, and then you either develop it or you move on, and you just sort of, that's how you just create this, I guess, the kind of life that you want. But it doesn't happen, like, you don't just wake up one day with 6 kids on your couch that are all, screaming. That's
and you hit on the point why we can't just wake up the next day with millions of dollars in our bank. Why we can't just get the things that we want the next day, because if we did, we'd go through imposter syndrome. We'd believe, like, this is not mine. I didn't deserve it. I'm not enough. It wasn't, it's like when people are like, well, people born to a lot of money, like, oh, they must have no problems, but they were born into problems. I'm not saying that. It's just like, well, what about my worth? What about my development? And they're constantly out there and they're constantly searching, because we want to find our place in this world. We want to find things that help to challenge us so we can learn more about us and where we fit, where we believe, or perceived notion of where we believe in this world. So even if you were a mother and you're just like, okay, here are my kids, you'd be like, well, I don't believe that they're mine because I didn't see them born. I didn't raise them. I didn't do a lot of these things. There's a lot of aspects. Like, don't get me wrong, if people adopt at different ages, at least they know and they're aware of the whole process of everything that's going on, and they feel like they're part of the journey. But when we just feel like something's handed to us, we spend, look
Right.
at a lot of people that win the lottery, the next day
I
they're
was just
poor,
going to say that. Yeah.
because that's what they do. They're like, oh, I've never had this, and then boom, it's gone, and then they're back to the same spot.
Hmm.
Because we can only consistently contain the things that are a representation and a reflection of where and who we are at the current moment in life.
Mm. Yeah.
So before we go, because we're getting to that point, so we have a few minutes left. So let me ask you my final question.
Okay.
If you could speak to your younger self, what would you say to them?
Oh, this is easy. Easiest question you could ask me. Stop
Beautiful.
worrying so much about what everybody else, or what you think everybody else is thinking and saying and wanting for you, and go within. And don't worry about everyone and everything else. In fact, I do a lot of talking to my younger self. Often I will do meditations where I go back and I sit with myself in high school or middle school or in elementary school, and I say, like, listen, you're not so bad. Like, don't worry, you're good the way you are. Don't worry about what everybody else is worrying about, because I think my biggest part of my journey has been in releasing that, and worrying more about what I want. And I think if I knew, of course we can say, if we knew that, our lives wouldn't have gone the way that they gone, and we could go down the rabbit hole with that fun sentiment. But I say that to myself a lot, just so that she knows that to just be yourself. My goal, I don't want for my clients and my people that follow my social media pages and my children, I don't want it to take somebody that they love so much dying for them to realize that they can change their own lives. I don't want that for anybody else. I want them to realize it now and do it in a happy place, and change because you want to, not because you feel like time is short and I need to do something with this. And that was my biggest thing with my moment when my brother died, was just going, I don't want that for anybody else, to have that, to have to take something so sad or so catastrophic in their lives, or change things so much to where it takes that to shove them into who they are. Be who you are anyway, without needing that, So that's what I would tell that to myself. And I would have loved to be exactly who I am today while my brother was alive, because he was a lot kind of like I am right now. He was a riot. He was a lot of fun.
It's beautiful. So, well, trust me, he still lives on through you and through everything. That's for sure. So, before I go, I just want to acknowledge you and say thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for all that you do. Like there's turning points in our lives that can put us down a different kind of road, but you decided to find a road that was more about, empowering, more about a road that was to ask questions, to learn about yourself, and a road that you're able to bring a whole bunch of people as a mother, as a mentor, as an entrepreneur with you. And I just want to acknowledge you for that and to say thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for creating a space that allows people to share about their moments, because I think that's huge, is just sharing our stories so that other people aren't afraid to share theirs,
100%. So before we go, where can people find you?
So you can find me on my website at jessicadugas.com. You can also find me on Facebook at Jessica Dugas Intuitive Mentor, and those two pages are the best ones that will lead you to the Breakthrough Show, my new podcast that's coming out, Project Joy podcast, the books that I'm working on, and all of that. You can find all of that through those main pages.
Awesome. I'll put that in the description, and thank you so much. Really appreciate you, your time, your energy, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.
Bye.
Bye.